Good afternoon. Today we'll be talking to you about mass loss estimation of polar ice sheets and global sea level change using predictions made from GRACE/GRACEFO data. Our discussion will centralize around 4 points. Background information. We will discuss prevalent information concerning the regions of Greenland and Antarctica on the subject of climate change, introduce information on the GRACE/GRACEFO satellite that we collected data from, and used to create our data projections. We will discuss the purpose of our research, explore the usage of data and general patterns identified, provide a display of all translated data into graphs to show data trends over time, such as a map presenting the effect of mass change on rate acceleration, loss of liquid water equivalent thickness in the basins of Greenland and Antarctica, LWE, and its contributions to sea level change. And finally, we will show future predictions. As the public is well aware, the regions of Greenland and Antarctica ice sheets have garnered significant attention over the years. We observe here major newspapers like Washington Post, CNN, and USA Today publishing articles discussing the subject and directly naming sea level rise as an issue. The mass ice sheets of the Greenland and Antarctic region maintain responsibility for almost a quarter of the world's ocean sea level rise. Polar ice sheets account for approximately 99% of Earth's freshwater ice on land. The gradual mass loss of the ice sheets is substantially contributing to changing sea levels worldwide. Our investigation delves deeper into the intricate process of ice mass loss in the polar regions, aiming to enrich public understanding and contribute to the urgent global efforts to tackle this issue.
In 2002, GRACE was launched. The Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment mission flew twin spacecraft in tandem around Earth to study key changes in the planet's waters, ice sheets, and solid Earth. It measured month-to-month variations in gravity, changes in the distribution of mass, and water movement. The data collected from the satellite helped scientists understand processes like ice melting, sea level rise, and groundwater depletion. Exceeding its supposed 5-year lifespan, GRACE lasted 15 years. And as the acronym suggests, GRACEFO is the follow-on of GRACE, which was launched in 2018. The GRACEFO mission is a partnership between NASA and the German Research Center for Geosciences, in efforts to continue the high-resolution monthly global maps of Earth's gravity field and surface mass changes of the original GRACE mission. Continuing the discussion of GRACE in application to our data, it is important to discuss the laser ranging interferometer and the K-band ranging instruments, as they provided substantial data to our study. The Laser Ranging Interferometer, or LRI, was an add-on to the GRACEFO satellite which uses laser interferometry to precisely measure distance fluctuations between the two GRACE spacecraft. It is where we get our laser range acceleration, or LRA, data from. The K-band ranging instrument, or KBR, also referred to as the microwave instrument, is also on board the twin satellites, pointing microwave instruments at each other to obtain data on distance changes. This is how K-band range acceleration, or KRA, raw datasets are obtained. The questions our research aimed to answer were, how can we use GRACE follow-on data to estimate mass loss in the Greenland and Antarctica basins, and how can we project these losses to see the effects on global sea levels? Our study was a centralized effort to explain the data produced by GRACE and GRACEFO in the concentrated basins of Antarctica and Greenland, and map data to show changes in sea level globally. While working on our research, we utilized the LRI and KBR data collected by the GRACEFO satellites. The data is used to produce mass change over mass concentration blocks, or mascons, which are discrete cells located across Earth's surface with their mass change signals. We were able to mass these mascons over Greenland and Antarctica, and finally, calculate the basin averages for Greenland and Antarctica over time and measure the impact of those mass losses on sea level change.
Using GRACE and GRACE follow-up satellite data between 2002 and 2023, we estimate the present mass loss in polar regions and project future shifts in sea levels around the world. Instruments on board measure the inter-satellite distances, which provide raw range data from GRACE and GRACE follow-up. The range data can be converted to gravitational potential data, then to data about mascons in terms of LWE, or liquid water equivalent, and finally to sea level data. GRACE follow-up satellites are in a circular polar orbit, meaning that each satellite passes over both poles during each orbit. The visual here shows the satellite's ground track, or the path GRACE takes over Earth's surface. The upper left shows a ground track over 1 day. The bottom left shows a ground track over 10 days. and the right shows a ground check over 30 days. Over 30 days, GRACE covers substantially more of Earth's surface compared to the previous ground tracks. This is approximately covering the entirety of the Earth, and this is why we use monthly data to establish each MESCON solution.
Due to gravity, when GRACE goes over a larger landmass, such as a mountain, the gravity pull increases the acceleration of the first satellite, and the range between the satellites increases until the second satellite reaches the mountain, as shown by the image on the left side. Once the second satellite reaches the mountain, the acceleration of the second satellite increases, and the distance between the twins decreases. Using the two instruments on board GRACE that we mentioned in the previous slides, we can use these distance fluctuations between the satellite to measure the gravity pull on the satellites, because it directly correlates with the acceleration. The range rate, and range acceleration graphs on the right side demonstrate the change in distance between the twin satellites as they travel over larger land masses like mountains. A peak-trough peak in range acceleration corresponds to a positive mass, and a trough-peak-trough implies a negative mass. These graphs show how the range rate is derived from the range, and how the range acceleration is derived from the range rate.
Both GRACE and GRACE Follow-up include a microwave instrument that has a range measurement accuracy of 1 micrometer, which collects KRA data. However, GRACE Follow-on tests a new instrument called the Laser Ranging Interferometer, which has a range measurement accuracy of 10 nanometers, and is more accurate by a factor of 100. On the left, we demonstrate that over a December 2020 pass, covering half the Earth's circumference, with range acceleration data from both KBR and LRI, we see that there are fewer fluctuations in the green LRI line compared to the red KBR line, because the LRI data is less noisy, meaning that it is more accurate. On the right, the map we created on this slide shows a range acceleration observed during a pass of GRACE Follow-on's polar orbit. To demonstrate the previous slide's range acceleration pattern, towards the bottom and top of the graph, we see a trough-peak-trough on both, which illustrates the mass decrease in Greenland and West Antarctica.
Here are the residual range acceleration geographical graphs for December 2020 that we created using GRACEFO's instrument data. Using the two instruments on board GRACEFO we discussed earlier, KBR and LRI, we receive raw residual range K-band and laser range acceleration, or KRA and LRA. We discussed how KBR is less accurate. It can also be seen on these geographical maps too. At first glance, the two global charts may seem the same, but looking closer, the LRA has fewer splotches of irregular data than the KRA, especially seen over the ocean. Additionally, the large fluctuation patterns in the water that we talked about on the previous slide are depicted here. When you see a drastic red-blue-red color pattern or blue-red-blue pattern, it signifies a change in the gravity pull of that area on GRACE, demonstrating a water mass or water shift in that region. For instance, North Canada and some parts of Antarctica are gaining mass because GRACEFO is detecting mass gain at red-colored regions that are surrounded by blue-colored regions. In West Antarctica, however, the large red-blue-red pattern demonstrates the significant ice mass loss in that region. From the visual, we observed the large correlation in patterns in Greenland and Antarctica. This is why we chose to focus on the regions, which we will discuss further in the next few slides.
Based on the aforementioned association between KRA, LRA, and mass change, we can derive the monthly MASCON change grids over the globe. The MASCONs are quantified in terms of liquid water equivalent, or LWE. LWE is a way of representing mass changes over a MASCON in the unit of water thickness. For example, if 1 centimeter change in LWE in a certain MASCON is like saying that mass has been added to the cell equal to water spread out over the entire MASCON 1 centimeter deep. We distributed the data amongst 3 regions: Greenland, East Antarctica, and West Antarctica. These 3 regions were separated due to different geological situations affecting each region. The MASCON datasets we are using are split up by months starting from GRACE's launch in 2002 to GRACE-FO's current operations in 2023. Which is approximately 219 datasets that we've worked with. From the MASCONs blocks for Greenland, West Antarctica, and East Antarctica, we computed Bayesian averages and derived the mass change time series for each of the 3 regions. From the data, we calculated a least squares regression line to approximate the LWE thickness change per year from April 2002 to March 2023. West Antarctica and Greenland showed a decrease in LWE at negative 4.87 centimeters per year and negative 10.8 centimeters per year respectively, and East Antarctica showed an increase in LWE at 0.479 centimeters per year. From the LWE data, we were able to convert this mass to mass change with a conversion that used the area of the specific region and the density of the water. So we measured mass change in gigatons, which is equivalent to 1 billion metric tons or 2.2 trillion pounds. So what does a gigaton look like? So currently we're looking at a graphic created over Central Park in New York City. And currently we're visualizing a gigaton of ice. And it will be over Central Park, it will be that height and that big over Central Park. So, yep. So our computation suggests that West Antarctica and Greenland are losing mass at approximately negative 105.1 gigatons per year and negative 233.7 gigatons per year respectively, while East Antarctica is actually gaining mass at 31.5 gigatons per year. Over 21 years, the average rate of ice sheet mass change was approximately negative 307.3 gigatons per year over the three regions. Overall, the ice sheet mass loss contributed to a global mean level sea rise.
From the time series of mass change of the polar regions, we derived time series plots of their contributions to sea level change by using the total area of the world's oceans. As more mass is lost from the polar regions, it contributes to a positive sea level rise. Deriving the slopes of the time series plots, we intend to find the average contribution to sea level change from each polar region. With these rates, we attempted to project the sea level changes for the next 100 years by combining data from all polar regions.
Sea level rise due to polar ice mass loss is not uniform. Looking at the left image on the slide, we can see the ice melts from the dashed black line to the dashed red line. As the ice melts and transitions into the water level experiences a decline due to the associated mass loss. Consequently, this reduced mass induces a diminished gravitational pull in the immediate vicinity. This mass redistribution has a border effect, leading to a noteworthy phenomenon in near-field geographic regions. In areas near the mass loss region from the initial ice melting, the water level undergoes a rise, accompanied by crust deformation, and the crust uplifts and results in an action similar to a decrease in sea level. In the image on the right, it's apparent that as the ice sheets lose mass, the rotation pull of the Earth can also change, which also contributes to the change of water distribution on Earth, which can result in changes in weather patterns. These effects are known as GRD, or gravity rotation and deformation. Based on these effects, we can compute a global mean sea level fingerprint from GRACEFO and compute a map of how melted water will redistribute globally for each ice sheet or region. In West Antarctica and Greenland, our mass change plots had negative slopes, and their sea level rise plots had positive slopes, so their mass loss resulted in a contribution to sea level rise. However, in the region of East Antarctica, it's observed that this region has an increase in ice mass. This projection, unlike the ones of Greenland and West Antarctica, actually results in a decrease of sea level rise. As shown on the graphs, the sea level contributions from Greenland and West and East Antarctica are different depending on the region. For example, Greenland's sea level contribution is more prevalent in the Atlantic Ocean, while West Antarctica's sea level contribution is more prevalent in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. For this final plot, we combined the graphs and data from all three polar regions for sea level change and constructed a map to illustrate predicted sea levels for the next 100 years. Over 100 years, we projected that the global ice sheet mass loss will contribute to an average sea level rise of 85.1 millimeters. Sea level fingerprints have shown that ocean fluctuations are not uniform and vary from region to region. On average, water levels further away from the poles increase, while water levels closer to the poles decrease. While the Pacific, South Atlantic, and Indian Oceans are projected to rise more than 100 millimeters in sea level, as compared to a global average of around 80 millimeters, the Southern and Arctic Ocean sea levels are expected to decrease over the next century. For the coastal regions of Hawaii, Tuvalu, India, and Yemen, to name a few, rising ocean heights are an apparent issue. As we begin to address the complex rising sea levels problem globally, Interdisciplinary efforts are essential to developing sustainable and innovative solutions that can protect vulnerable regions while fostering global cooperation to combat the impacts of climate change. Here are our citations.
Thank you so much for listening to our research presentation. We hope this was informative and insightful. We'd like to give recognition to the NASA SEAS internship program for this opportunity as a team to conduct authentic research, the CSR facility for their generosity to provide us with a working environment with incredible resources, and lastly, our amazing mentors Chaoyoung Zhang and Chirag Patel for their endless patience, energetic spirit, and undivided desire to teach us. Thanks for listening.